Hello, I'm Claire Herding and welcome to the Legislative Update. Recently, the debate of 12 bills resulted in a prolonged legislative session. One of those bills was an anti-bullying act created to make a safer school zone. If it were to become a law, schools would have the power to monitor students' actions off school grounds and over social media. In addition, employees would have to take training courses on how to deal with alleged bullying cases, and student mentor programs would be established in all schools. The bill made it through the Senate before it died in the House of Representatives. Republicans believe that the bill undercut parental rights by allowing administrators to avoid notifying parents of bullying incidents.
Yeah, I thought it was unfortunate that the Iowa House didn't pass the anti-bullying bill. We spent a lot of time on that in the Senate. There's a lot of support for it. It passed overwhelmingly. It has the support of Governor Branstad, and it's just really mind-boggling to me that the Iowa House Republicans chose not to get that bill moved forward. We need to support every youngster in our schools. We need to make sure that in no uncertain terms we say bullying is wrong and we ought to stop it, and that bill would have done a lot of good. So I hope that there's still time, maybe this session, to try and revive it, but it's going to be a challenge, I think, given the opposition from the leaders, the Republican leaders in the Iowa House.
Another bill still under debate is the legalization of fireworks sale in Iowa. The bill has received a bipartisan push because legislators think that by allowing it, people could become more educated and accidents could be avoided. Legislators are aware of the fact that fireworks are used illegally because of our current law. As of right now, Iowa has a head in the sand law, which states that you can possess as many fireworks as you want, but you cannot use them. Iowa is one of 5 states that outlaw fireworks. A recent survey showed that 56% of adult Iowans want to lift the ban. The bill passed in the House on a 53-43 vote and is now eligible for floor update.
So there's members of Republicans and Democrats that support it. There's Republicans and Democrats strongly opposed to it, and it came out of the Senate committee where we have more opportunities to stop things or make things happen, and so it remains to be seen. I mean, right now the bill's over in the Senate, and the Senate Democrats are going to have to decide whether this makes sense or not. The Senate leader, Mike Gronstal, has the authority to bring up the bill or not bring up the bill, and I guess we'll have to see what comes of that.
In addition, on April 15th, the Iowa Senate voted yes to legalize marijuana. However, it is currently stuck in a House committee. It is known that the Republican-controlled House has no plans to consider approving this bill in this session. Republican Senator Charles Schneider voted against the bill, stating he does agree that medical marijuana does have healing values, but he is concerned that whatever type of state program is implemented, patients who have availed themselves to medical marijuana would still be violating federal law. Senator Joe Bolcom, a long-term advocate for medical marijuana, still has hopes for the future legislator.
Well, I've met with a number of constituents and got to know people all over Iowa that suffer from chronic medical conditions and diseases that simply are not having their health care needs met by the best doctoring and the most powerful drugs that are available. And they would like access to medical cannabis to address things like Crohn's disease, HIV/AIDS, cancer, multiple sclerosis, and a handful of other diseases and conditions that, frankly, people don't get better from, they just live with. And the House the House Republicans, again, have chosen not to take up that legislation. We passed a bill in the Senate with 1 Republican vote, and I hope that the advocates and people that want this, there's overwhelming support by Iowans for the state to put together its own medical cannabis program, and I hope that the pressure continues to stay on elected officials who have essentially quit listening and turned their backs on these suffering, vulnerable Iowans.
Another issue the legislator is dealing with is texting and driving. In 2010, Iowa legislator made it illegal to text and drive. Now Iowa is deciding to make this rule more strict. The legislature passed a bill making it a primary offense to all drivers to text and drive. A law enforcement officer could stop a motorist for no reason other than texting behind the wheel under a bill passed by Iowa Senate Tuesday, March 16th. The law states, a person shall not use a handheld electronic communication device to write,
send or read a text message while driving a motor vehicle unless the motor vehicle is at a complete stop off the traveled portion of the roadway. The scheduled fine for the violation under the Senate bill would remain $30. In other words, a new law takes effect July 1st, makes unlawful betting a Class D felony if potential winnings exceed $1,000, an aggravated misdemeanor if potential winnings exceed $500 but are less than $1,000, a serious misdemeanor if potential winnings exceed $200 but are less than $500, and a simple misdemeanor if winning potentials do not exceed $200.
At the state capitol, the House and Senate leaders are still deciding whether to increase or lower the budget for the next academic year. They hope to finish at the end of May or the beginning of June. Governor Terry Branstad says that it will require patience and perseverance. Negotiators had hoped to set the fiscal 2017 fundings, but they will leave it on hold until next session. Democrats and Republicans are $100 million apart on spending for human services and Medicaid programs. Branstad want Republicans to increase by 1.25% state aid growth for K-12, but they're refusing to accept it. Meanwhile, the Democrats have pushed 4% and have made compromises. Recently, both sides have moved closer to split the cost by 2.625%. It will prevent the budgets for most schools, but it's not enough for everyone, says Senator Rob Hogg.
And I think it just there are a number of renewable energy bills that are struggling right now because they cost money. Some more incentives for solar installations, solar power installations. Some more incentives for small wind. So those are struggling right now. And so those are a couple priorities that I have this session that unfortunately are not moving forward.
On the other side of news, state lawmakers began to work on Monday, April 27th to assemble state budget plans. They hope they can approve a budget and send it to the governor in order to adjourn the 2015 session. The House Appropriations Committee voted to 14 through 11 to increase the higher education fund that will use up over $977 million on Iowa's universities, community colleges, workforce training efforts, private college tuition grants, and other programs. According to Representative Cecile Dolchek, the funding level is in line of Republican spending targets in a tight situation which will require, quote-unquote, very painful cuts. Before making a final decision on the spending plan, most Republicans agreed with Walt Rogers to approve an amendment that shifted $12.9 million from the University of Iowa to fund performance-based increase of $6.6 million for the University of Northern Iowa and $6.3 million for Iowa State University. Recently, the Democratic Senate and the Republican House agreed to disagree on funding community colleges.
Because the stalemate around education, so much of the energy has gone into funding for K-12, funding for our public universities and community colleges, and because none of that's been decided, I think hopefully that's going to be some of the good news that's coming out. Sometimes stopping things is also good. I'm hopeful that the fireworks bill is stopped, that we don't pass legalization of fireworks in Iowa. I think that's a big one that, so sometimes it's not always about what gets passed. It's about some things that don't advance. There were also legislation to liberalize our gun laws in Iowa, take away annual permits and the like, and some of that's not going forward either. So I think the big things that I've worked on this session that haven't gone ahead are probably victories in a way. Although we are not concluded yet. Here on May 27th, there's still a chance that we're going to do fireworks, legalize fireworks, and the like. But sometimes it's about stopping things that you think are bad policy. The other thing I'd say that has been stopped at this point is the proposed performance-based budgeting for the public universities that was proposed that would have a very negative impact on the University of Iowa, and that's something that is not going to go forward this session.
The Iowa legislative session continues to drag on. Democratic Senator Tony Bisagano stated he the legislature ultimately has until July 1st, or else the government shuts down. Vizgano stated that he doesn't understand why House Republicans would be in any different state of mind in terms of how they feel about K-12 funding and human services. The biggest issue preventing the adjournment of the General Assembly is the budget. Democrats and Republicans can't seem to agree on spending. In early May, Senator Bob Dvorsky stated he anticipated at least 2 more weeks and then maybe some more for the parties to work together. School budget is very important. Republicans want 1.25% and Democrats want to raise it to 2.625%. With the session keeps dragging on, hopefully they'll be able to come to an agreement in the next weeks.